see, we're with Dick Sylvester today. Dick, tell us about a little personal history, where you grew up and where you were born.
I was born in San Luis at a place called Mountain View Hospital. It's not there anymore. It was over by the, so it was over there by the high school. And but I was raised in Avila, and but I spent a lot of my time at my grandparents because we were fairly. There was 5 of us, and I spent a lot of my time in my grandparents' care. Only because I enjoyed it, and it was in the farm, and then that kind of relieved my mother too. I think a little bit of having a bunch of us there, and it was actually kind of, in a way, it was kind of neat, but then in another way, it was kind of hard because my grandparents spoke mostly. They could speak English, but they primarily at their house they spoke Portuguese.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, when I went to school, I didn't know any English. I had a pretty rough go for a little while. It didn't take me long to learn. You know.
Were your grandparents immigrants to the country?
Yes, they were. They come from the Azores, both of them. And anyway, it was a pretty tough row. In fact, I even when I had my own, I grew up, got married, and I had my own children. I kind of vowed that I could still remember those bitter feelings when I was small, of not being able to speak the language, and I did not want to teach my own family that, which I still could do. Now I've lost quite a bit of it, but at that time I could still speak it quite fluently. But I'm sure sorry of that now. I kind of wish that I'd taught them. You know, and they know a little bit, you know, but it was something that I regret, and I'm sure they do too. But that was it, and then I went to high school in San Luis, and we were in a little 2-room school is where I went there in Avila. And they had like the 1st through the 3rd in one room, and then 3rd to the 6th, and then the 7th grade you went into. In fact, I was the last class in the old junior high school in San Luis. It was they dismantled it, and I was the first class in the new junior high up on the hill above the old high school. I don't think they even use it for junior high no more, but it was kind of ironic because they said that the junior high was dangerous because it had like a basement type floor, and it had 2 floors above, and it was solid granite. And when they went to dismantle it, they almost couldn't dismantle it.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it was more earthquake proof than the one that they've got now.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really was. Beautiful building too. Kind of remind me of, you ever been out to Criddle House here?
Yeah.
You see that type of outside decor? The older it gets, the prettier it looks.
Yes.
That was what it looked like. It was a beautiful school. It was just a shame that it had to be tore out. It was in the area where Scalari's is now.
Oh,
that
is
market.
Right?
That's exactly where it was. Then I went to high school, junior high up on the hill. Like I said, we were the first class there. And then I went to, after that, went to high school. And as soon as I graduated high school, I kind of left. Of course, we were living at Avila. I was living at Avila at this time, and we were being bused back and forth until I was able to drive, get my own car and drive. And then after that point, I went fishing with a family friend of ours, and we needed a crew, and I wanted to go.
So you went sort of fishing right after high school?
Actually, no. I was fishing way before that time.
Before.
Oh yeah. We had abalone business. My dad and my uncle.
What years were these, Dick?
Well, I graduated in 1957.
Okay.
The abalone shop. See, we had my dad and uncle had an abalone shop on the pier at Avila, which is called Old Pier now, Old Port Pier. And it was located as you go through into the building. It was on the far end on the right-hand side, that whole corner of that building was an abalone shop.
Oh, well,
And I used to work there, just help out as a little kid, you know, make boxes and stuff like they used to make boxes out of wood instead of cardboard, and they had to be handmade. And then whenever they needed somebody to fool around on the boats, I used to fool around. And then my dad got a fishing boat, and of course he was always kind of in it. He'd rather fish than do the abalone business. But and he went in the wintertime, we fished crabs. So we crabbed in the winter and fished little salmon in the summer, and then in between good spells, and he'd go with the abalones. He'd help with that on the abalone part.
What years was your family involved with abalone?
Boy. They built the new shop in Avila in 1948. And that's when they moved from the third pier, or that old port, into Avila. And the building was Rick's. You know where Rick's is there? That the building they just tore down that was the building that my dad and uncle built. And they must have got into the abalones, I would say, in the early 40s. And my dad, when he came from the old country, came to Massachusetts. My dad was born in the old country. My mother was born here. In fact, Oak Park is where she was born. My dad came over with my uncle to this coast. I can't remember when that was. What year? It had to be in the mid-30s. 34, 35.
Was it before that? 32?
It was 32. It was in the maybe mid-early 30s. And they actually came to here, and my Uncle Manuel and my dad's the first two to come. And my Uncle Manuel, he was married and had a family. And I can't remember, I think he stayed in the valley, because that's as far as it came, the first leg. And then I think he worked over there for a short period of time for a dairy. And then my dad went to work for the dairy, and then he didn't like the dairy. And he came over here, he got an opportunity to get a job working for one of the Pierces over here. So he took that opportunity and came over here.
Actually, he was fishing?
Yeah, they were diving.
They
were diving.
They were diving.
And then my other two uncles, that were Albert and Tony, they moved over here. And then they were here for a short period of time. And then for some reason they ended up in Avila. And then all four brothers, and my Uncle Manuel that was in the valley, he decided that the cows weren't for him, and he ended up in Avila too. So all four brothers were in Avila.
What was the what's the appeal with people from the Azores to this area? Because it seems like there's a thread there, a common thread.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably like I'm going to say birds of a feather. I mean, you feel a little more comfortable with probably the people that you have a similar bond, and that would be the old country. Even though they didn't know each other, they could speak the same language pretty much, and that's probably why. I noticed that in little groups, even throughout the country. You know, they always seem to. Well, Chinatown in San Francisco, and then you got North Beach is all Italian. You don't see the Chinese in North Beach, and you don't see the Italians in Chinatown. It's just, and I think throughout this country it's the whole thing, the same thing. You know, Irish immigrants came over, and different areas of the East, and that's we don't have no Irish here. What we have around this country is a lot of Portuguese and Swiss, stuff like that. Anyway, I think that was the reason they came here, because there was a lot of Portuguese farmers here.
Did your family have a background in fishing?
Yeah. My grandfather was, he fished, he went in the winter time. He had a license, which that was kind of an uncommon thing over there. I mean, not everybody had a license. And he ran, if my memory serves me right, my dad told me, he would run inner island, like not a charter boat, but a passenger carrying boat. Mm-hmm. And that's what he did in the winter. Then in the summer, he would catch a schooner in the mainland, and they would go to Grand Banks and fish during the summer in Grand Banks.
Mm-hmm. So he sailed too?
Yeah, because that was during the sailing time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you started fishing, what attracted you to the industry?
I don't know, just something that I kind of understood. Mm-hmm. But it was, I would say probably more than anything, it was the independence. Mm-hmm. I'm not a person that likes to, punch a time clock or something like that, Mm-hmm. It's just independence, I guess, more than anything. And years ago, it was a good livelihood.
Yeah.
It's changed pretty drastically lately, but then it was good. Mm-hmm. And it was something I still enjoy it every morning when I get up, and it's still enjoyable. Mm-hmm. It's not the money that's in it anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just the liking to do what you like to do. Yeah. And a person can make a lot less if he likes what he does. Mm-hmm. This is the enjoyment of it. Yeah.
What fisheries have you participated in? You mentioned abalone. What other ones?
Well, in fact, Eddie and I, we've got a picture of us. It's kind of funny because when they made a crab fishing permit issue, it seemed like a lot of these younger guys that got into the industry, they liked to put limits on things. Of course, they fished, for maybe 10 years or so, and they fished crabs for 5 or 6 years, and they set up window periods for the years that they liked it claim. And we weren't going to get. You still have your crab permit?
No, I let it go.
Oh, did you? Oh, because of the...
I sold the boat.
Well, they said, well, you can't get none because you never fished crabs. And, my mother came up with about a 8x5 photograph of him and I. He was probably...
I was about 9
or 10, 8. And I was about 14.
18.
And when we showed the picture to these guys that supposedly know all about crab fishing, they couldn't figure it. I was pulling the, we had a cat head then. That's how we ran the gear. And all these guys are looking, what is that? That's a cat head, that's me. Mm-hmm. That's my brother right there. Yes. I said, we've been doing this a lot longer. You don't even know what that is. Yeah. And we got our crab permit.
Well, we did, just based on that. Good old mom.
Yeah, good old mom. She had that picture. Uh-huh. So, because we had no record of it, because it all was in my dad's name.
Were those Dungeness or
Dungeness?
Mm-hmm. They had a Dungeness crab fishery.
Very healthy Dungeness crab fishery here. And then let's see, Dungeness fished salmon. Fished seine for salmon in Alaska. Fished swordfish. That was probably, we harpooned swordfish, and that was probably the most, I really like that. That's an enjoyable fishery. And then I fished longline rock cod, what they call Portuguese gear, up and down gear. And let's see, what is this saying? And then herring, I got a herring permit.
Participated basking sharks.
So what? I fished basking sharks, yeah. That's, God, that was what, in the late 60s, early 70s. And drug on a drag boat. I was a crew on a drag boat for a while. And I know there's other fisheries. Yeah, I fished albacore with the boat, when I was younger. Not when I'm older.
Yeah.
I get a little smarter
Yeah.
with this size boat.
Well, speaking of your boat, we're on the Trudy S here. Tell us a little bit about your boat.
I don't know. She was built in 1946. I've owned her pretty much big portion of her. I bought her in 1960. President Kennedy got assassinated that year. 60, what would it be? 2 or 3? 2? 3?
63.
Okay, well, I bought her that spring of 63. I've owned it ever since. We raised, let's see, we were married, my wife and I, which she is a Pierce, one of the Pierces from here in Morro. We had 4 daughters of our own, and we were married in 60. And I bought the boat 2 years afterwards, and this boat has produced a living for us and our 4 daughters, which are all gone now and have their own families. But it's been a good little boat.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know where it was built?
Yes, it was built by a fella. I don't know his first name. I only know his last name is DiMaglio. He's an Italian fella, and it was in Wilmington, down by Long Beach. And he built probably, I don't know, a couple of handfuls of other boats. In fact, the Doran, Sandy's boat, that was one. And the Penny Lynn, which used to be the Geronimo years ago, that was, you remember Sam Bartella?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, his brother had the Geronimo built. And then it was sold to, remember Marineland? It was sold to Marineland. His brother sold it to Marineland, but he had the job on it as a captain. And then when Marineland folded, then a guy in Avalon, Mitch Ruda, bought it, and he had it for a while, and then he sold it to a fellow. It's up in Moss and Half Moon Bay now. It's called a Penny Lamb. It was another boat that this was similar size.
Yeah. Is there a name for this style of boat?
Not really. It's, I don't know, just a little knuckle stern, I don't know, gill netter, troller, whatever you want to call it.
Kind of all around.
Just, yeah, pretty versatile.
Yeah.
And in those days, you had certain boats were set up for certain things. Trawlers were trawlers, trollers. Usually, a lot of the trollers were double enders, just like the one you see right next to us over here. And but they were specific. This thing here, this boat here, had a wide stern. It was good for nets, packed a good load, and she was a good sea boat. And it was just kind of a versatile boat. You could do a lot of things with it. And it wasn't that I knew that when I bought it. It was only after I bought it that I realized the value of what I had. It had a lot of versatility, and it wasn't set up for just one fishery.
How was the market for boats when you bought this one? I mean, was it a big financial investment for a guy with a young family?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it was. It was a big move. I had never been on my own other than when I left high school to that point. It was, yeah, it was a big jump. It was, will I be able to pull it off or not? And I had enough confidence in myself, I thought I could pull it off.
Because you must have been in your early 20s when you acquired it?
23, I think. 23, I think it was. 23 or 24 when I bought this boat.
And how long before you recognized that this was the way you you wanted to live your life? You knew it right away, or
In sound and fishing.
well, when you bought the boat, you said, "Well, I'm not too sure about this," but
It.
when did you say yes?
It didn't take very long.
Yeah.
Maybe 2-3 years, and I could see the handwriting on the wall. This is it. This is what I wanted to do. There was times though, in the winter time. Usually, see in those days, you could fish the summer, and then you had usually you made enough to where a lot of times you didn't even have to fool with anything in the winter. You could do odd jobs. You could like sometimes I'd go to work with my dad. He'd have a crewman taking a vacation or something, because after they got out of the abalones, they went into these tugs.
Okay.
And there'd be guys that would want vacations, and I'd take vacation for them, you know, for 2-3 weeks sometimes here. The only time I didn't go fishing for 1 year was 1960 when I got married. I stayed home for 1 year, and I worked on the tugs. I was hopping back and forth, and but I could see that wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
No way.
That was on the time clock. Yeah.
That was, yeah. and by the next year, I told the wife, I says, we're out of here. I says, I'm probably not going to see much of you, but I'm going to go see if I can find a job on a swordfish boat. Yeah. And she said, that was one thing where I was really, really, really lucky. Was the fact that I had a woman that understood when she was, no matter what, and no matter what predicament we were in, she was always 100% behind me. If I take a step backward, I step on her toes. That was, you know. And it's kind of unusual, because I've seen so many that they've had hard times, and the first one that gives them, you know, as their mate gives them a problem, and can't do that. And it worked out good for us. And I went fishing that next year, and that would have been 61. Then I went the next year, 62. And in fact, Trudy went with me for a trip. She really enjoyed it. I was working for a fellow in Santa Barbara. And then 63, that's when I bought this boat. 63, never do anything about it.
Tell us, you know, about some of the features in the house here. You got a lot of electronics.
Well, yeah, it's electronic age now. It seems like you have to be abreast of everything. If you don't, it seems like you get kind of left behind. So I got several different radios, and then of course this is a depth finder. It's a lot of our equipment is made abroad, like this one here, this Simrad. I think this was made in Sweden or somewhere. It's a very fine machine. And then just this radar, I think that's American made. But then here's Bruno Loran. And then I've got another one that I actually used to use this one for herring fishing. Because it was the state of the art when I first went herring fishing. Now I just put it out of it. And then there's just a temperature gauge. And then I got a plotter here. It's and, well, of course, a telephone, which is sometimes not an asset. It's a detriment, because everybody's always calling the wrong time. So I've gotten to where now I didn't hear you. I didn't hear the phone ring. It becomes convenient. But the other day, in fact, it was day before yesterday, I went down finally, and I purchased a plotter. Not a plotter. A computer. I'm totally computer illiterate. I don't know the first thing about computers, but I figured that I got to do something. I've been looking around the place. I bought a laptop computer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and they have these new discs and stuff with all the chart updates and all the stuff for keeping you on a position and keeping your track so that you can. This one does it and does it well. But as you can see, the screen is tiny. It's not very big. See, where a laptop computer, you can get a big screen. And this one here has areas where it throws you a curve. And if you're not, it will, especially one place up north where I fished, it will throw you off maybe about 1.5 miles. And that is not good.
No.
And so this is a conventional Loran. So with the computer is going to be a satellite
GPS.
And you got to have the programs, and you got to have a small GPS, and I've got to get that.
Since we have you on camera here, maybe explain how a Loran works. What's that all about?
Loran worked. It was developed during World War II, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not much up on it, so that they could, for Europe, I think, Europe campaign, and it was so that they could bomb during the night, because I guess they were real vulnerable during the daytime, and that was the only time where they could really, have accuracy. So what it does is they have, like, they call it a master station and a slave station. These are on points of land.
Yes.
Like we had one down here at Point Arguello that was a master. And then the slave was up in Point Reyes area, I think. And all it did was measure what's called microseconds. And somebody else could explain this a lot better than I can, but what it does is it transmits from one to the other, and the other transmits back again. And what you're doing is measuring, it's all done simultaneously, you're measuring the fractions of a second that the sound or the transmission takes to get to you. It's like an echo hitting a wall. The closer you get, your echo comes back to you faster. And this positions you on one point. And then they have another one that might be over here and another one over here. That way you can, it cross-triangulates you and it gets you roughly in there. As a matter of fact, I've got an old Loran chart somewhere. I think this is on my chart. My charts are getting so bad that I gotta get them all tore up and see if it's got Loran lines on it or not. Yeah, I think it does, matter of fact. I never used this chart, I should take it home. There they are. You see, these here are the Loran lines. You see them going this way, and then you can see the red ones going this way. Point Arena, that's where it was. That's where the slave was. I'm sure that was a slave. And then it goes the other direction, and then there's other ones coming like this here. And you go further up. Where's Blanco? It's got another one. I think that's one of the. Clear up at Blanco. Yeah, that's another station there. And that's how then they have inland stations too that make those triangulations. They don't even have, they still do it, and that's what this is. But see, it's not as accurate as the new ones, the global satellite. Yeah. So that's what we got to get updated.
You're keeping up on technology.
Trying to, but it seems like about the time you get a new piece of equipment that you think is just there, you haven't even got it hooked up yet, and they've got something newer and better.
Well, it's coming into.
Yeah, it is.
But it makes fishing a lot safer, though, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Much so. It's for your own benefit. It's just like a lot of the stuff that we complain about the Coast Guard, raising cane with us, having rafts, and it's actually for our own benefit. It's just that a lot of fishermen are they stick their feet in cement, and they're just hard-headed. if you, I said, you know, this would really be a good idea, and they come up with the idea, you know, we ought to have EPIRBs and survival suits and other stuff. They go along with the program, but when you got a government agency saying you've got to have it, that's a tough one to take. Here's one right here. I just purchased this. This is EPIRB. And EPIRB stands for a bunch of words that I'm not quite sure. It's emergency positioning, radio beacon. I can't even remember. Does it say it on
Probably
it?
says
You
it.
can go ahead and pull it out of there. See, so just does it say?
This is EPIRB. We all
Well,
know
that's what we'll call it.
We all know
Yeah,
what it does.
you're right.
So what does it do?
Well, it's just this here. This will not be activated. This here is I just put it, got it activated through where was it? New Jersey. I had to send in showing that I was going to put it in service, and each one has their own number. And whenever they hear this thing going off, they want to know why it went off. And the only way that this one can go off, see, there's a magnet right there. In case these things are, they have hydrostatic ones with, is that what it is? The automatic release.
Hydrostatic
Release. So that if when the boat goes down, it can pop to the surface. Boats this small don't have to have that. They can have a what they call a manual operated one. And this one here, right now it can get all wet, all these buttons, but these buttons have a when it comes out of this case, see there right here in this black thing is a magnet. That magnet is keeping this off. The minute you take it out, it is still off, but the minute you put it in water and these buttons become, that's the other switch.
Oh, okay.
And it starts transmitting a signal to, where in the world is it?
It's all over the world.
Yeah, but it's back east somewhere, and then they immediately find out who the owner of this is, because it's got its own, oh, it doesn't show it here. It's got its own signal, its own beacon identification, and then they notify the next of kin and stuff to find out. In fact, you're on this one for me. I've got you as an alternate, and I was for Delinda J. Dale, and Trudy's. We're at home. I'm not at home. Trudy is, and she gets a phone call, and she. The operator says, this is Sylvester. Yes. Do you know Linda Che, Mr. Hunt? Yes. Is Mr. Hunt out fishing? She says she didn't know. So she got a hold of me, and I told her no. And what had happened was the EPIRB Dale was working on the boat, and he had no idea about the magnetic control of the older one. And once you took it out, it's got a gauge on it that says armed or unarmed. Once it's armed, but in its cradle with the magnet, it's okay. But he didn't shut it off. He just unlatched it, took it down, and started painting, and it was just sending a signal away. And they thought it was that he somehow set it off. But he did set it off.
So what you're saying is you have different people on this particular EPIRB, and they can put it on their boat if you're not fishing. That's not what you're saying. What are you
Each
saying?
one has got their own identifying mark,
Okay.
and I can only notify them that I'm getting out of the fishing industry if I sell the boat, and that the EPIRB has to be changed to whoever the new owner is. I can take it with me and keep it, but I got to notify him if I'm putting it on another boat or whatnot.
So when you say
And
an
that's a new-
alternate, that's somebody that if it does go off and they can't reach your home, then they call
They
that
call,
list.
yeah,
Okay.
Eddie, which is the first one on the list,
I
and then
see.
my brother-in-law,
Mhm.
which is the second one on the list. But they got to notify somebody and
Okay.
find out.
Mhm.
And then of course we have rafts,
Mhm.
which is another. That was a quite expensive thing. We had a program here through some oil mitigation money that helped a lot of the fishermen here
Mhm.
get rafts.
Yeah.
And the EPIRBs and the light, and then the survival suits.
Do
That's
you
that's
have an
another big
immersion
one.
suit?
Oh yes,
Mhm.
I do.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah, they are. They're tough to get into,
Mhm.
but I tell you, it was really amazing when I first jumped in the ocean with it. I didn't figure it would, it was going to keep water out. But it kept water out, but that zipper still leaked
Did it?
water. Oh yeah, it did. Well, my suit was stretched pretty tight, and it did. It leaked water in and water on my face. But I mean, still, that was very minor because I was totally underwater with it. And I could see where in this frigid water, a person doesn't have much of a chance, you know. So that's a pretty important item. But anyway, that's the survival part of it. I mean, that's the stuff that the government makes us get. Like I said earlier, if being told to us to get it's kind of like sticks in a craw, but when you stop and think about it, put common sense to it, it's really a good thing. The only thing that somewhat bugs some of the fishermen, and I can understand why. I was up in Bodega, and there was this large party boat that was being sold, and I was curious about it. He had a crab block on it. He was fishing crabs in the winter. And I asked him about it because he didn't look like he was going to fish the boat anymore because he had it for sale. I wanted to see if he wanted to sell that crab block. And I talked to him, and he was pretty bitter because he had this brand new raft on the boat and an EPIRB. And the reason he was mad was because he had a boat that was capable and licensed by the Coast Guard to go 100 miles offshore and carry, I believe it was 50-some people and plus his crew. And the only thing they had to carry was these old balsa wood life rings. And he says, I just can't figure it out because I wanted to do a little commercial crab fishing. He says, I had to buy an EPIRB, I had to buy a life raft, I had to buy immersion suits for everybody that was on the boat. But yet when I go sport fishing and take people out, I can go out 100 miles with almost 50 people on the boat. And the Coast Guard says that my life rings made out of balsa wood that are open with grates on the bottom are good enough. He says, where's the, and then why? Why is this now? Are the people's lives on the sport boat valued less than the commercial fishermen? I don't think so. It's really strange. And I could never find an answer for that. So anyway, I just kind of let that one go, like a lot of other ones. It was really ironic. It's just like we have to have seat belts in our car, we have to have them in our truck, and we have to have all these seat belts and bags and stuff. And then we put our children in school buses.
No seatbelt.
No seat belts. No airbags.
Curious, isn't it?
It is. It is. But anyway.
Anything else
What other?
that you want to add? What we're going to talk about?
In what manner? I'm open to anything. I just,
How do you feel, crew?
Can we
is
talk a
there any
little
other
bit about,
questions?
Can we talk a little bit about fishing markets here in Morro Bay and the processors? Maybe where you landed your fish?
I land my fish at a bay shore, which is Jim Silva. And as a matter of fact, I got a T-shirt. And he didn't give me this.
Yeah.
He gave me this a long time ago. But it's a nice T-shirt.
Very nice.
And this is his
Yeah.
logo. A little plug for it. I'm sure that'll be snipped out. But he used to work here when this was. In fact, he still comes down and fiddles with him a little bit. When it was Brebs, he started out with Brebs, right out of high school. In fact, he was in high school when he was working for Frank Brebs.
Quite a while back.
A long time back, yeah. And I used to, last year, I fished for the last couple of years. I fished before I came. I fished for Jimbo, or this outfit, and then for quite a while. And then I went to and I fished for Lee. And I fished with him for 2-3 years, and then I come back to Jimbo when he sold out. It's really there used to be several fish buyers on the waterfront here, and there's not a lot of them anymore. I'm just thinking there was. There was 4 that I could think of. Years back a little bit, there was 5, and now actively there's only 1, 2, and there's 3.
Yeah.
Is all, and it's becoming where the industry is getting so regulated that it's how do you say it? It's not viable anymore, and it's really a shame too, because it all these people want to come down here to see all the fishing community and everything, and really it's nice, but then when you try to come down here to work on your boat, you can't find a parking space to come and work on a boat, or you want to pack some gear down, well, we've finally got a little place open here, but see, the tourist business was not as, now I guess tourist is everything, and which is fine, but I kind of wish that they'd leave all the tourist people here, and then we could go to Cayucas and have just a commercial part of it over there. But it would never work that way, because where would the tourists want to go?
Go see you.
Exactly.
In Cayucas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the way that would work out. So we just kind of got to work amongst it, but sometimes it just.
Well, how have the prices, value of fish have they kept up with your operating expenses as a small businessman? No.
As a matter of fact, I was looking at some tags, because I had to go back and get some tags and get some receipts that was like 15 years ago, the late 70s, early 80s. And I was looking at them. Do I have? No, I don't have them here. And I was looking at the prices. And one of the big things that I'd fish for, that's, the salmon.
Yeah.
And it had to be about 81, 82, maybe a little bit later, maybe mid-80s. I was getting like almost $4 a pound, like $3.80, like that, $3.75, $3.80, $3.90, and probably there was somebody giving $4. And last year we were pretty lucky to get 2. At that time, the diesel was probably about 50 cents a gallon. Now it's what, $1? What, $1.25?
Something like that.
A tray of bait then was like 50 cents. Now it's $1, $1.50. Equipment, everything else is done exactly the same, and we've passed the, our price and our expenses are exploding. We've passed that point. That's why earlier I was saying you got to do this because you like it, not because of what's involved. You know, monetarily. It's.
Did you say what year that was when you were looking at these?
It had to be the mid '80s, early to mid '80s.
Okay, so not that really that long ago.
No. One of the things that really brought us to our knees was the advent of farm salmon.
Yeah.
Farm salmon
Mhm.
just really brought us to our knees.
And it's
We
no-
have nothing anymore. No bargaining. The only possible thing that we have is quality.
Mhm.
We produce a fine quality, and now a lot of these fishermen are starting to learn how to take care of their fish. Anybody can catch a fish, beat it to death, open it up, clean it out, and think they've done a good job. But the guys that really do it know what a good job is and what a good job isn't. Well, a lot of these guys used to sit back on their well, they'll take it whether they want it or not. Well, I have a fair track record of having a good quality product, and I've had no complaint ever as far as the quality. And now I see where I always wanted. See, up in Northwest, they have what they call a bidding, and I always wanted that, hoping to get that, because the guys that take care of their product always get a much better price than the people that just work volume. And of course, the buyers don't want that. You know, they pay the same for one as they would for another. Like one time, I got into an argument with Guillermo here. It was over halibut, and it was really. I says, well, why don't you? I'm fishing locally, day fishing every day. My fish is fresh. I says, how is it that a trip boat that comes in with 6-day-old fish, and he gets the very same price I get? He says, well, that's the way it is. I said, okay, I'll go for that. I'll go along with that, provided that you send my fish, pack it up, and you send it to Los Angeles, and you sell his fish across your market. So I can do that. Why not? Then does that tell me that my fish has a better value than fish that's been sitting on ice for 6-7 days? Why won't you ship my fish out? Well, it wasn't, to his benefit. But there was not much we could do about it.
Well, the price of halibut has improved over time.
Yeah, it has. It is one of the fish that seems to kind of hold up in the winter.
Yeah.
In the winter.
Yeah.
We have now inserted into the picture something called GATT. And what's the other word? Free trade with Mexico.
Yeah.
We can't sell fish in summer. Trucks are coming across the border with tons of fish, and they don't care what they get for it. We try to sell something in the summer. All right.
And now you're looking at some closures of halibut gill netting, the way you access the fish, that are going to eliminate that winter fishery.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They're going to want to eliminate us completely. And it's really a shame that it has to be done that way, because we don't even get a fair shake to even try to speak for ourselves. How do I say that? We have no way of defending ourselves. We have no way of defending ourselves with logic. It's a shame because a big, large percentage of the how would I say it? The legislation that's done to us, the rule makers, the lawmakers, they're not using logic anymore. They're using emotion. And when emotion got into this equation, then common sense went smoking right out the door. Because there is no more common sense. It's all done with emotion. Oh, they're cute. Oh, they're this. Well, it doesn't matter. We're not harming. Oh, yeah, but you might. You know, and it's really a shame.
So let me get this straight. Summertime when you should be fishing salmon, your price is half of what it was 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you try to fish ground fish, you've got Mexican import that undercuts your market.
NAFTA and GATT.
And then in the fall, when you could be fishing ground fish, you've got gear restrictions coming on that don't allow you to fish.
Won't allow us to fish. Pretty.
The farm-raised people, they're still in business.
Yeah, they are. They are. They were the problem, and there still are. But I noticed, or at least I heard. I'm thinking of joining what they call a co-op. There's a salmon producers cooperative. It's born in the Northwest and Alaska. And they have got a track record of #1 quality. And that is one of the things in their criteria, boy. You make short trips, you care for the fish that you catch, and of course this doesn't mean catching a whole bunch of fish all day long and then cleaning them all night. You catch so many, you clean them, you catch so many, and you clean them. Instead of having a 1,000-pound day, you may only have 500. But it's quality. And that's the only thing we got left. And I was talking to the fellow in Bellingham, and he was telling me that supposedly the French now are coming around to where they're not caring too much for the farm fish. And the farm fish is somewhat losing its appeal in Europe, so they're starting to peddle fish to Europe. Yeah, I don't want to bore you with any of the stuff that they find in farm fish, because it's pretty. It's somewhat not. It's not frightening, but it's they have got stuff in that farm fish that I wouldn't want to see any of my children or grandchildren. No, we'll eat something else. If you come down to having to eat fish and salmon being the only thing, and it would be farm salmon. No, there's and that's the reason a lot of these countries now are taking a hard look at these farming industries, because they are noticing now that there's a lot of problems with raising of them. They're doing a lot of ecological damage in the raising of them. Scotland, I think was one that curtailed all permits until something was done.
So a person watching this program and just learning about this, what would you want them to know about king salmon and your product?
I don't know how you put that in words. I can only relay that, or relate to that. There was a lady that my wife worked for in the school. She was a teacher, well-educated lady, very nice lady. And about 4 years ago, the lady passed away now. She was retired, a very nice person. Anyway, I had this half shark-eaten salmon bit off. So I took it home. And Trudy was saying, you know, she says, Mrs. Brown, she really enjoys salmon. Her and her husband, when he was alive, they used to eat salmon every chance they got. I said, fine. I said, take her, you know, go, because she was going to go visit her. She wasn't feeling too well at the time. So she did. She went and she took her some fish. And following day, I got a phone call, and it was her. And she says, what kind of salmon is this? I says, it's king salmon. But we catch her. She said, it is so good. She said, I can't remember eating salmon this good. I says, you can't. She says, no. She says, it's been years. And I says, well, you eat it quite often, Trudy says. She says, oh yeah, I go to the market and I get it down here. And she told me what market it was. I don't even remember which one it was there. It was a foothill market. And she says, yeah, she says, I know that we can get it more often now, but she says, it doesn't taste anything like this. And I said, yeah. I said, well, what you've been eating is farm fish. She says, well, what is that? So I explained to her. And I said, well, I said, it's like that old saying, you are what you eat. And these farm fish eat the same thing as rabbits eat. So it's pretty hard to get real prime quality meat or you know, flesh from something that eats nothing but pellets. In fact, the color, the Atlantic salmon is not a true salmon. See, it comes back to the river more than once. It's a steelhead. And if you look, you go down to any market that has farm salmon in it, you get one of their boxes, and you look, because it'll say it right on the label, it has to, that the color is derived from an additive that they put in the food. Otherwise, it looked like a piece of rock art.
It's
Just like a steelhead. Yeah.
Light color.
Very, very much so, yeah. So, if you really want a product that's really good as far as salmon, you just about have to get something wild, you know. And but you know, I can understand these restaurants saying that you know, they've got to have a product because the people want it. You know, the people don't know what they're eating. But I do like Roger. Were you there?
Bayshore Galley.
Yes, the Bayshore Galley. Did you hear his statement? When there is no fresh salmon, it comes off of his menu. He does not. And that family has been in the fish business, the preparing of fish. They have with the Galley restaurant, and they have got a very good record. They're a top of the line restaurant here in town.
They know it's good.
And they know it's good. Yeah. And they want the best quality for their customers. And when there's no wild salmon, the salmon is taken off the menu. So anyway, I would just wish there was a lot more like that. You know, but I can kind of understand it because I go to Walmart's and buy something that's made in China. I don't know if I will now or not. I wonder what those people felt like when they tore into that plane and looked at the product, because it was mostly made there, I think. Oh gosh, this probably should be cut out.
It's on the floor.
It's on the floor, right?
I want to maybe interview Eddie, and then I was thinking it might be good if Dick would tell us a little bit about the gear and about the deck.
On the back deck.
I'm going to have to leave here at about 2:30.
Okay.
All right.
Man, how long were you on it? Yours just kind of like flowing. It just
Flow.
prime the
Prime the pump.